Moving to the quiet suburb of Pine Hollow was supposed to be the break I needed. After 10 years working undercover for a federal police task force, all I wanted was to park my government-issued Jeep, sit on the porch of my new home, and enjoy a normal life for once. The neighborhood was a perfect blend of peace and privacy, or so I thought. It didn't take long to realize something was off. Just 2 days after I moved in, a woman with a tight bun and a clipboard marched up my driveway like she owned the place. She was dressed in that typical Karen uniform. Floral blouse, oversized sunglasses, and an attitude that could crack concrete. "Excuse me," she shouted before even reaching the steps. "You can't park that thing in your driveway." I glanced behind me at my black armored Jeep, the same one I'd used in several operations overseas. It was registered under a covert shell company, carried encrypted surveillance tech, and, to the untrained eye, just looked like a tough, off-road vehicle. "That thing is a government vehicle," I said, sipping my coffee, "and I have every right to park it here." Karen scoffed. "Not in this HOA you don't. We have standards." I hadn't even joined the HOA yet. I didn't plan to. According to county records, my house sat on one of the few known HOA lots. Fact I'd verified twice before signing the deed. I told her as much. Karen wasn't having it. "Oh, you'll be hearing from the HOA board," she snapped. "That Jeep is an eyesore. I don't care what you think, you know. I run this neighborhood." With that, she marched off like she'd just delivered justice. I didn't even bother responding. I'd dealt with cartel bosses and war criminals. A nosy neighbor with a clipboard didn't faze me, but I underestimated how bold Karen could get. 3 nights later, I came home from a supply run and found my Jeep missing. At first, I assumed the worst had one of my old targets tracked me down, but there was no sign of a break-in, and my security cams installed discreetly by the agency hadn't shown any professionals. Instead, what I saw stunned me. It was Karen. Wearing gloves and a hoodie, she'd marched right up to my garage, cut the lock with bolt cutters, and hot-wired the Jeep. Karen stole my Jeep. Now, most people would call the police, but I am the police, just not the kind you send for HOA drama. Still, this was grand theft auto and tampering with federal property. But before I could make my move, something incredible happened. The next morning, the Jeep was found, abandoned outside a local gas station, engine still running. The cops called me in, curious how it got there. I played it cool, told them it had been taken, but I'd prefer to handle it through proper channels. I wasn't about to let local officers poke around in a vehicle filled with surveillance gear and encrypted radios. What really caught my attention, though, was a report from a bystander, apparently. A blonde lady in a hoodie had been driving the Jeep erratically and freaked out and jumped out, yelling something about the government tracking her. That's when I knew Karen had messed with the wrong Jeep. She must have triggered the vehicle's internal tracking system and possibly even the panic protocol. The Jeep was programmed to lock down, activate voice commands, and alert HQ if unauthorized access occurred. For all I knew, she thought the thing was possessed. I returned home that night and found Karen waiting by my driveway again, acting like nothing had happened. Her clipboard was gone. This time, she had a pie. "I wanted to apologize," she said sweetly, eyes darting around. "About what I said before. I think we got off on the wrong foot." I stared at her. "Wrong foot? You mean when you stole a federal vehicle and triggered a level for tracking alarm?" Karen's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer and lowered my voice. "I know it was you. I have footage. That Jeep isn't just a neighborhood eyesore. It belongs to the Federal Police Task Force, and you just committed a serious felony." She swallowed hard. "Now," I continued, "I haven't filed a report yet, but if I find one more HOA flyer, one more fine taped to my door, or one more lock cut, you will be dealing with more than a neighborhood board." Karen's hands trembled as she handed me the pie, clearly meant as a bribe. I didn't know. I thought it was just parked illegally, and I thought it was abandoned. ... Save it, I said. "From now on, you stay on your side." "Of the street?" She backed away slowly, mumbling something about baking more pie next week. I took the pie, mostly for show, and set it directly into the trash. What Karen didn't know was that the agency had already flagged the incident and had been watching from the shadows. I got a call from HQ that night. "Need us to intervene?" they asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let's see if Karen learns her lesson." Damn. I knew this wasn't the end of it. I thought the message had been received. After our last confrontation, Karen disappeared for a few days. No more HOA notices, no passive-aggressive flyers, no clipboard marches past my house. I figured the fear of federal prison had been enough to make her rethink her hobby of harassing neighbors. I was wrong. On Monday morning, an official-looking envelope showed up taped to my door. Violation notice. Unauthorized government equipment on private property, final warning. Signed in bold cursive at the bottom. Karen D. Wallace, HOA president. So she was back. Worse. She'd doubled down. It didn't make sense. She'd stolen a federal Jeep, gotten spooked by its internal defense systems, nearly caused a tracking alert to escalate to level 5, and still thought she could win this. She wasn't just bold. She was dangerously clueless. I took the notice down, scanned it, and emailed it straight to my agency contact. Within minutes, my phone buzzed. "She's really trying this again." Agent Mendez chuckled through the line. "We've been monitoring her since the Jeep incident. Honestly, she might have just made your job easier." "My job?" I raised an eyebrow. "You were planning to enjoy retirement, right?" He said. "Well, guess what? Karen just made herself the center of a growing federal investigation." That same week, I started noticing unmarked vehicles parked around the neighborhood, SUVs, tinted windows, men walking around pretending to be pest control or meter readers. Karen didn't know it, but she'd drawn the attention of multiple federal departments. Why? Because that Jeep she stole wasn't just mine. It had data, field reports, and, most importantly, evidence files from an ongoing investigation into white-collar corruption. An investigation that had been leading us closer and closer to Pine Hollow's perfect little HOA. Turns out, Karen's power trips weren't just about lawns and fences. A deeper dive showed the HOA had been embezzling funds, laundering money through landscaping contracts, and illegally charging homeowners fees to inflate the community's cash reserves. All roads led to Karen. Her biggest mistake wasn't cutting my lock. It was getting caught on a vehicle, wired to record everything. One morning, I sat on my porch with a mug of black coffee, watching the show unfold. 2 black vans pulled up across the street. For agents, dressed like contractors, walked up to Karen's house with a sealed warrant. She opened the door, hair in rollers, her robe flapping in the wind, and started screaming before they even showed badges. "You can't come. In here, I'm the HOA president." Agent Mendez calmly flashed his credentials. "We're here on behalf of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Step aside, ma'am." That scene was more satisfying than anything I'd seen in my years on the job. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Cell phones came out. Karen was escorted into the van, not arrested yet, but detained for questioning. She screamed the whole way. By that evening, the entire HOA board was under review. Bank accounts frozen. Meetings suspended. Suddenly, neighbors who once avoided me were bringing cookies and asking, "So, what exactly do you do for a living?" Kept it vague. Just a consultant. Occasionally help with community cleanups. The next day, I got a call from Karen. Yes, Karen called me. Her voice was weak. Far cry from the screeching, clipboard-wielding tyrant I'd first met. "I didn't know. Thought it was just a car," she said. "I didn't mean to get into trouble, Karen," I said. "You didn't just break into a car. You tried to use your fake authority to take what didn't belong to you. You broke federal law. Now that law is knocking on your door." She started to cry. "Can you make it go away? Talk to someone? Please." I paused. "No." Click. 2 weeks later, Pine Hollow looked very different. The HOA was officially disbanded. Karen had stepped down from every neighborhood position she ever held. Federal investigators had uncovered years of fraudulent charges, hidden kickbacks from contractors, proof that Karen had used HOA funds to remodel her kitchen. I, on the other hand, received a quiet commendation from the agency. Excellent. Asset placement, they wrote in my file. Successful passive infiltration of corrupt civilian organization. In other words, my retirement home had just become an accidental field op. Karen moved out shortly after the investigation concluded. Rumors say she went to live with her sister 3 towns over. Others say she changed her name. I honestly didn't. Her house sold quickly, probably because the new buyer heard the HOA had been dismantled. Me? I kept the Jeep in full view, parked proudly in my driveway. No more fines, no more threats, just the hum of crickets, quiet evenings, and the occasional drone flyover from the agency. Still keeping an eye on things just in case? Because if I'd learned one thing from this experience, it's this. You can run from the rules, but you can't outrun a federal task force.